That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan and Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan and Fields, love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Hey, I absolutely love talking to Domenick Crispino. The man is absolutely brilliant. He's an ex-attorney. He's an ex-convict. He's a legal commentator. And I know what you're saying. Well, boy, how do you find someone that does all of those things? Well, there are actually 2 people that do all of those things at the very least. Dom Crispino and Frank Gangemi. Frank Gangemi and Dom have now partnered up to do a new podcast called Justified. They just had their debut episode. It still is going to be doing having some tweaks, but I am told there are a number of episodes in the offing. There's a YouTube channel. You could just search Justified, a criminal justice, a criminal justice podcast or criminal justice network, and you can see and hit the subscribe button and automatically get new episodes of the show. It's quite good. So I do recommend that you check it out, and I have a feeling it's only going to get better. But I figured we'd take advantage of Dom's expertise while he is willing to get up early for us. Dom, it's great to talk with you again. Thanks for joining me on the radio.
Good morning, Frank.
Morning. Where to begin? There's a lot to get into with you. First, this is a case that I actually hadn't seen many other cases. It has to do with the Supreme Court. Apparently, the Supreme Court is leaning towards reviving an excessive claim against a cop who killed a black man in a traffic stop. What was the situation here? Break down what the initial case was, what the legal issues are here, and what the Supreme Court's thinking of doing.
Well, over the years, the court has developed a doctrine where there's immunity, qualified immunity, and beyond that for police officers. And the reason behind that is you don't want it to be easy to sue police officers because if they make mistakes in good faith, I mean, we want them to, they're in dangerous situations, and we want them to be able to make decisions as long as they're not like so patently unreasonable. So the courts have created this doctrine to protect them. So the question is, how far does that immunity go? In this case here, there was a traffic stop, and during the traffic stop, the car started rolling forward. And what happened was that the police officer, a la T.J. Hooker, jumped up on the car, and a series of events happened, and they ended up shooting the driver. Now, driver dies, and there's a suit that ensues, and the lower courts, surprisingly, sided with. No, not surprising, actually, sided with the police, saying, well, what the officer did was not unreasonable. He's entitled to immunity, even though it's kind of disproportionate to, first of all, jump on the hood of a car and then shoot somebody, just on general principles without more. So the case has made it up to the Supreme Court, and a decision is imminent. But it seems like the court is actually going to say that the focus shouldn't be on those 2 seconds where the officer or the car starts moving. You have to take into account everything before that. So whereas the courts were looking at this very narrow time frame, hey, the car's moving, I jump on the car, and the gun discharges, or he intentionally discharges it. You have to look back at what's the pattern of the flow of facts that led to that point, which is actually an expansive view actually puts the immunity doctrine in a little bit of danger at this point. It's gonna be expansive, and of course, if that's the case, more cases will survive if you have to go deeper into the analysis rather than just looking at the very narrow window. So this is going to be an interesting decision coming down.
What is the timetable for when the Supreme Court's going to make a decision on this, and then when are we going to actually see any sort of difference in behavior on the part of local police departments?
Well, I mean that's two very different questions. First of all, as a general matter, the court hears arguments and makes decisions anytime from a couple of months later to the end of the term, which would be June. So we know it's going to be in that time frame. So probably within the next 4 months you'll get a decision. The likely outcome is that the case may be kicked down. They're not going to decide the case; they'll decide the doctrine and probably remand the case to the lower courts to apply the new rule or the expanded rule. So you don't automatically win at that point, but it's still, you get another bite at the apple. Will this change behavior? I mean, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I guess that if it's a more expansive view now with body cameras and all the stuff we have going on right now, there's dash cams. Now all that will come into play, and I have to think that police officers would have to be more careful as a general rule, even without that Supreme Court decision. Yeah, I think with everybody recording everything, I think this is the point. This is the point at which, if I were a police officer, I'd be very concerned.
At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Dom Crispino. If you want to see and hear more from Dom Crispino, just go to the YouTube and search Justified, a criminal justice network. Hit the subscribe button, and you could not only check out the most recent edition of Justified that Frank Angemi and Dom Crispino have done, but you can immediately be notified whenever there is a new episode uploaded, so you can check that out. It's really terrific, and I've been a fan of these guys from their radio work for a long time, and it's great to see YouTube, which so often seems like an endless swamp of things to waste time with, at least give me something that I'd like to waste time with and at least be stimulated to some extent. Hey, Dom, we heard a lot a few years ago about Amanda Knox. She was everywhere. She was a cause celeb for a while. She was an internationally paid attention to criminal case. Now I hear less and less about Amanda Knox, but apparently she's being thrust back into the spotlight, and she's even speaking about her case because it's been a few years. Remind us of who Amanda Knox is and what the issues were with her case.
Amanda Knox was an American student living in Italy, and she got involved in a controversy, and believe me, it's more than controversy. A person was killed, and she was accused of being a part of the murder. It turns out somebody else did it, and she was convicted based upon a confession that the Italian police obtained from her, and the case worked its way up through the Italian system, which is very different from our system, and ultimately the conviction was tossed. However, a part of it, she was in prison in that time period. A part of that case survived. It was the criminal slander charge. Now, criminal slander, we don't have that in the United States. I mean, if you slander somebody, it's a civil matter here. But in Europe, criminal slander has a very vibrant and long-standing existence. You see it in the English courts sometimes when somebody will criminally slander somebody in the royal family, and a lawsuit will be brought. A criminal lawsuit will be prosecuted, which is like an odd concept to us in the United States because we're a nation that holds free speech dear. But anyway, I digress. So Amanda Knox, the Court of Cassation, which is the highest court in Italy that speaks to criminal matters, has affirmed that and said, well, it was criminal slander, albeit you were not guilty of the murder. Now, what's different about this case, always been different, is that the Italian legal system, first of all, they can take you into custody just on an investigation. They can take you in and question you. She was questioned for 5 days. She claimed she was beaten, berated, till finally she gave in, and ultimately, that prevailed in terms of the proof of the murder. She didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, albeit she was she may have been a witness to part of it. In Italy, what happens though is that they don't deal with what's called a static record. That is, in the United States, you do a trial, everything is written in stone, and then all analysis of that case is based upon that static record, the transcripts, the evidence. You don't rehear it again unless a new hearing is granted by the lower court. So in Italy, on appeal, the appellate judges will say, well, you know what, this issue hasn't been developed. Let's call in everybody and have some testimony and this, that, and the other thing. And they don't have the protection of self-incrimination. I mean, they can call you and ask you questions. In many ways, it's a more advanced system than ours because they, on an appeal, will dig into a case. We don't do that here. We protect our record.
Right. Our appeals are based on paperwork.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So you would think that in a country like ours, we would actually get a little further and actually allow delving into that kind of record. But I mean, it's a different legal tradition. So anyway, Amanda Knox has been fighting this for it's got to be at least 18 years. I mean, give or take. It's she was trying to, I guess, clear her reputation, but apparently not to be so. So. But at least she didn't have to, have the murder conviction. So that's, I guess that's our plus.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Are there limits to the U.S. government's debt growth? What will happen if the debts are not curtailed? What should policymakers or investors do? Those are urgent questions that legendary investor and New York Times bestselling author Ray Dalio addresses in his new book, How Countries Go Broke: The Big Cycle. The book comes out in June and is available for pre-order today, wherever books are sold.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Lights, camera, innovation. Walt Disney Studios chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform the movie-making process. Together, we kept a remote production hub in Hawaii in sync with a team in California to bring Lilo and Stitch to theaters this summer. This is picture-perfect collaboration. This is Walt Disney Studios with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. If people are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Dom Crispino, sort of doing a little bit of a roundup of the legal news of the day. There was an interesting story that I've been following to the best that I can about the Alabama solution and this shocking secret footage in this prison documentary. Now, we have a lot of listeners in prison now, and by the way, for anybody that emails me in the court link system, I am way behind. I think at least maybe even 2 weeks behind in going through my court links email. I will get to you. But what's the story with this documentary? Why is this footage creating such a kerfuffle? And what is the Alabama solution?
Kerfuffle, Frank. I haven't heard that word in a while.
Well, this is why people listen to this show, Dom. We do all sorts of things that are unpredictable. You don't know what we're going to do. We're saying next.
Anyway, the Alabama Solution is a documentary that's being shown at the Sundance Festival. And it involves video from cell phones taken in the Alabama system. Now, that may seem odd because you would think that there'd be no access to this, but in prisons you can get stuff, and apparently in Alabama, getting a cell phone is pretty easy. So there's all this video taken by inmates of abusive behavior, horrible conditions, rats, and like flooded areas, and inmates having to do like essentially what's slave labor. Now, the word slave labor, I do not overstate that word is true. You know that, of course, Frank, that the 13th Amendment to the Constitution says that slavery or involuntary servitude is illegal, except in cases where you've been convicted of a crime. So slavery, in many ways, exists in the correction system, and inmates are forced to work. They're forced to live in conditions that are, I use the word substandard, but substandard. So actually seeing it, obviously I've been there. I've had many friends who've been there, and we've been in New York, which is, not as bad, but still many instances could be bad. But in a place like Alabama, they have like a skeletal staff and horrible conditions, and of course something has to be done about that. It's often been said that you can tell the type of society you live in by how it treats its prisoners, and if that's the standard here, Alabama's like way down the list here. And apparently the governor will not comment on this.
So I spoke with Elliot Resnick, who was one of the January 6th protesters who was in prison, federal prison, rather a low stakes in terms of security prison. And he got his pardon, and then he was on with me literally the next day or maybe 2 days later. He described prison, at least for the month or so that he was there, as being, or maybe 2 months, relatively pleasant. He said it was nice not to have to worry about your meals. He said, especially if you're a guy like him that likes sports but doesn't get to play it a lot, it's an opportunity to play things like pickleball and baseball, stuff that he never gets to play except when he's in prison. He described being able to catch up on reading. He said he read 50 books. So he painted a picture of prison, and this is what I said to him, that was like adult summer camp. And he said, yeah, that's almost kind of what it was. Now, that is a lot different from the picture that you're painting based on this documentary footage of what we see in Alabama. How much of a disparity, or how much of a gamut does the prison experience run for someone? Because it seems like these guys in Alabama have it, as you describe it, slavery, versus Elliot Resnick, who just couldn't enjoy it more.
Well, first of all, there's a split between federal prisons and state prisons, and then there's a split between prisons in the north and prisons in the south. And east and west, and they all are different. But it also depends on what level of security classification you are. In the federal system, you could be serving 20 years, but if it's a nonviolent offense, you may end up going to a camp, and you can play golf. There may be no walls. It can be almost like a warped version of summer camp. But that is a very limited part of the system. When you get into the federal system in your medium and maximum security, it's much different. And you're in the state, in New York State, for example, where you go depends on the length of your sentence. So, for example, I had a very lengthy sentence, which was ultimately reversed, but I went to maximum security. I was with serial rapists, serial killers, hitmen, serial burglars, serial everything, Frank. Some really bad guys, and of course my offense was nonviolent. Mm-hmm. So it depends on how the system classifies. So, you're lucky if you go to the feds. I mean, I have actually friends in the federal system at some of these camps, and, they're out there losing weight, doing the little exercise program, catching up on their reading. Albeit I caught up on my reading too, but, you had to like dodge some stuff in order to do that.
I bet.
But, it can be really bad. So, it's no joke. I mean, and a lot of the books people write about prison are, the Martha Stewart version of prison, the guy who just describes version of prison. So they write the books, based upon that. And of course, there's always a dynamic in prison. You are in close quarters with other people, and that's always a recipe for things to happen. But generally in a situation like that, everybody in that prison knows they're going home. And that's, may not be next year, maybe a couple of years from now, maybe 10 years from now, but you're going home and you'll be relatively safe. Now, if you're in a state system in a maximum security prison, you have guys who are never going home, and they have nothing to lose in certain situations. So, I mean, you have to be very guarded in that situation. You have to know how to navigate this, and you gotta participate. There's a prison economy. If you want things, you gotta figure it out. You gotta navigate the inmates. You gotta navigate the correction officers. You gotta navigate the correction administration. It's an interesting little game and a very serious game.
Yeah, I mean, I think most listeners would probably not want to try it out for themselves. We'll talk with Dom Crispino. Dom, President Trump seems to be doing pretty well of late on the legal front, both from a criminal perspective and a civil perspective. Now, apparently CBS News is getting ready to hand over the transcript of Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview to the FCC amidst this $10 billion Trump lawsuit. Now, this is interesting for a few different reasons. One, Trump recently won a similar suit against George Stephanopoulos and ABC News, and now he's poised to win this suit with CBS, but apparently a lot of the journalists at CBS are not happy with this. They feel as if the brass of the network is kind of kowtowing to Trump and caving into him. Break down the legal issues on this one and tell me how you see this case.
Well, I love this case. Apparently, they interviewed Kamala Harris, and what they did was they kind of cut the interview to make it sound more coherent, because she was famous for getting involved in what they call word salads. Mm-hmm. These impossibly complicated and stream of consciousness sentences that if you actually listen to it, you say, what did she just say? Which is probably why they kept her out of a lot of interviews. Kept her off Joe Rogan, for example. I don't think that would work in Joe Rogan. So what Trump's suit is that they were biased in their reporting. They cut this thing to make her sound more coherent. So they actually misrepresented what she was saying. So essentially they were telling us what she said rather than letting us hear what she said.
And explain the problem with that to folks. Like, let's say I'm talking to you live now, but let's say I would have pre-recorded this interview with you, and I've pre-recorded many interviews, and I edited this interview to make you sound more intelligent than you actually are. What's wrong with that?
Well, I mean, I would think that's great to make me sound more intelligent than I am. But however, you have a presidential candidate who's, and they're doing an interview during a campaign. There's first of all, there's an ethical issue with the journalists in journalism that to present the interview as it is, not as you'd like it to be. It's different than you editing an interview with me, because who am I? Well, first of all, I have a background, but still, that's not justifying doing it. But in terms of space, and as long as you get the gist of what I'm saying, and you're not like causing me to slander myself unjustifiably, I mean, well, then I can sue you, Frank. But it's a presidential campaign. I mean, you cannot make her give an answer or make it look like she's giving an answer that she actually isn't giving. You're interpreting it at that point. I mean, I know the media likes to interpret, but at that level you can't. I mean, you're getting it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So Trump is saying, "Hey, you're biased. You're trying to hurt me. I guess I'm not exactly sure what the cause of action is." Mm-hmm. But it seems like it would be actionable, whatever it is, because logically it should be. So the release of this transcript now is going to be interesting, because we're actually going to hear what she said, and you can lay that side by side against what they said she said, and it's a really fascinating dive into modern media and how it's manipulated. I mean, this is what Trump has said all along. I mean, everybody poo-poos it and says, he's exaggerating. Right. He always exaggerates. He put his foot in his mouth. Now he's trying to get the other one in. It's like Donald Trump.
Hey, Dom, I got to get at least one more case in before we run out of time. And it has to do with these, with the situation involving Louisiana. A Louisiana prosecutor says a New York doctor should actually be charged over an out-of-state abortion pill prescription. I can't believe this case, but sure enough, a Louisiana grand jury indicted a New York doctor and a Baton Rouge area mother on felony charges because the doctor prescribed her an abortion pill. Yes. What's the story with this case?
Well, it's the first criminal case based upon the abortion after Roe was reversed.
Right, the Dobbs decision.
Yes, in Dobbs. And Louisiana has outlawed the use of abortion pills. So what happens is, in the situation, there's a mother who has a teenage daughter who gets pregnant. And the kid wants to have the baby, and the mom says no. The mom fills out a questionnaire online, and it's a New York-based company that it's a doctor in New York with a company, and you do the questionnaire, and they diagnose you, because you have to see a doctor to get it apparently, and they mail in the pill, and the mom makes the daughter take it. So Louisiana's position under their new law is that, hey, that's criminal abortion. I think that's what they define the crime as. And the New York doctor has participated in this criminal abortion, and therefore is subject to Louisiana law. And they want to extradite the doctor or have the thing, and the doctor should come voluntarily to Louisiana to face the charge, but they want to extradite her. And of course, the governor of New York is a very pro-abortion state, has said no, we will not do that. So now you have a little bit of a constitutional crisis. I mean, generally states recognize each other's laws. There's a comedy there. Comity, not comedy, Comedy, which, sometimes you wonder what the difference is. And you have a little bit of a crisis here. States don't have to extradite in situations where their law is different than the other state. The problem the doctor has is that she's pretty much going to be confined to the state of New York at this point. So let's say she goes and takes a vacation in Florida, right? And while in Florida, the authorities down there say, hey, there's a warrant for your arrest, and they take her into custody and send her to Louisiana. So, I mean, from the doctor's perspective, she's trapped at this point. But she's protected as long as she's in the state of New York. So you have a little bit of a constitutional crisis going on.
Wow. So how do you see this ending, real quick, Tom? How do you see this coming to a head?
I'm a bit perplexed on this one, how we work it through. I mean, it looks like Louisiana under Governor Landry is pretty much determined to see this to the end, from what I can tell. I mean, they are Governor Landry, who used to be the Attorney General of Louisiana, is really hardcore on this issue, and a number of other issues in Louisiana. I mean, this hardcore conservative. I mean, you use the word conservative. I mean, this is with a capital C down there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Hey, Dom Crispino with a capital C. We're going to have to end the conversation there. You got to come back. Come back soon, because I always enjoy the conversation.
Same here, Frank.
Dom Crispino. Do check out the Justified podcast on YouTube. There's only one episode so far, but I'm telling you, this is going to be big. This is going to be the next big criminal justice podcast. Just search Justified on YouTube, a criminal justice network, and you can check out the first episode that Dom Crispino did with Frank and Jemmy. Subscribe, and then you'll get a new episode every single time. All right. Your calls for the rest of the hour and the rest of the show, 646-720-0635. 8 open lines if you care to comment, 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.